at what point should it stop being painful, would you say?
So I will make sure to clarify on that point. Pain is not normal, right? So anytime there is pain with breastfeeding, especially if there's damage involved as well, we want that mom to get support immediately. Is there some soreness as you're learning for the first time how to breastfeed? Absolutely, but soreness is different than pain.
Yes.
So we don't want breastfeeding to be really painful. That's where we want to be looking at latch and positioning and optimizing things so that you're not, toe curling every time you go to feed your baby, which is 8 to 10 times a day. Like that can be torturous. So making sure that there's not a lot of pain, and that actually is one of the red flags, and we want to make sure that people understand that that would be a reason to reach out for support if they didn't already establish it prenatally.
Welcome to All Things Sensory by Harkla,
your go-to podcast for practical insights on sensory processing and development from an occupational therapy perspective.
Hey there, welcome to All Things Sensory podcast. I'm so happy to have you here today. I'm Rachel, a pediatric occupational therapy assistant, and I am so excited for today's interview. I am having a sit-down conversation in studio with my friends at Wild Milk Co. We have Kristin and we have Maureen, who are both IBCLCs. Now, before you turn this episode off because you're like, well, I don't have a baby or this isn't my season, whether you're a parent, a professional, an educator, I think it is a really great conversation to have because we talk about so much more than just lactation and feeding. There's sensory components, primitive reflexes, nervous system regulation, just like product recommendations that are coming to you from the experts, what to do, what not to do. And it's a really honest, open conversation. I am really excited for you to listen. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Make sure you leave a comment or tag us while you're listening so that way we know you are enjoying it and you're going to share it with the masses. So let's jump in and we will meet Maureen and Kristin. Hello, ladies. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Rachel.
We're so happy to have you. I'm so happy to have you. This has been a conversation that we've been hoping to have for a while. I've known you just within the community from our workout classes. It's just like been such a great connection, and I'm excited for you to share your wisdom with our listeners. So before we jump in, I've got my secret questions.
Let's do it.
So that way everyone can learn your deepest, darkest secrets before they actually know who you are, so they can make their opinions first. Okay.
Love it.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Ready?
All right. What is your beverage of choice?
Coffee.
Hands down, coffee.
Coffee. Okay. Cold coffee, hot coffee, lattes.
I'm a cold brew kind of gal.
Cold brew.
Usually cold brew, but season dependent.
I don't think I've ever had cold brew.
What? Do you drink coffee?
I drink decaf.
Okay.
I feel like there's not a lot of decaf cold brew options.
That's probably true.
I mean, summertime, 90 degrees outside, just floated the river, never sipping on a little cold brew.
I love my wine.
I mean, that gets the job done, done as well.
It does, yes. Okay. What is a completely irrational fear that you have that you know makes no sense, but you still have it?
My eyeballs and windows, and like my eyeball getting smashed in a window.
That is
irrational.
So wild.
Don't know where it came from. Always been there.
Okay. Eyeball. Not what I was thinking when we were talking about eyeballs.
I know. I love when I learn new things that I don't know about you, because there's probably not all that much.
True. That's true.
Okay, so I think I hold a lot of tension in my jaw and my teeth, and I have dreams that my teeth are falling out, and I just feel like when I'm also awake, get these like random fears about my teeth falling out.
That is so wild.
It makes so much sense.
But it's irrational. You know it's irrational,
totally.
But we still have it.
Yeah. Totally.
Wow. Okay, great questions. Okay, if you had to survive a week using only the items that you have in your car right now, how concerned would we be that you would make it or not?
Not that concerned.
Yeah, not that concerned. I have a potty. I have a portable potty in my car. I have water in my car. I have snacks.
Bars.
Yep. That speaks to mom of 3 children.
Yes.
Yes. Survival.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel that
That's
too.
on point. Yes.
Okay, what is the most embarrassing I thought no one saw moment that you've had as an adult?
Oh. Gosh, that's a good one. I had something in my teeth for like a good part of the day, and it was like that moment where the real friend came in and was like, girl, like a huge thing, and I was like, I ate hours ago and I've been talking to so many people with a big smile. It was right in the middle.
Yeah,
it's like a piece of lettuce, or it usually is front and center.
I hate that.
I'm going to out my husband on this one, and I'm going to share one of his stories. It's not actually mine. So,
okay, but I love this.
You know, we all do the sniff test from time to time, right?
Yeah.
And he did not know that I could see him through like the crack of the door, and he sure as heck picked up his underwear and did a full-on sniff test to see whether or not it needed to go in the laundry. And I was like, I just saw that, and he got beat red. It was the funniest thing. Yes.
Hilarious.
So it wasn't mine, but I still
you were involved in it.
It's a good one.
Wow.
Sniff test.
I love that. That's not the sniff test that I was thinking. I was like, yeah, we're good. Keep going. That's even better though. Okay.
Totally.
Last question, my favorite question of them all. What are your sensory quirks?
Ooh. I pick my nails. Definitely pick my nails.
Okay. As like a stress thing, or like you need them to be a certain length?
No, as like a stress thing. Like I feel like anytime I'm stressed or anytime I'm like challenged in one way or another, it's my go-to.
Okay, we need to get you a fidget then, don't we?
I think I fidget with my fingernails instead of having an actual fidget tool.
Yeah. Okay.
Valid. I used to pop my fingers. It's gotten better.
Okay.
So maybe
Those
I'm
were tame, you guys. I was hoping for something a little more like...
Okay, what's yours?
Maybe we have them and we don't even know
many.
I think we have them and we don't know them. Maybe you can help us.
Yeah,
you can help us work through this.
Okay, my biggest... Well, a couple of mine. When my hands get too dry, panic. If I have to touch like a microfiber cloth and my dry skin sticks to it, can't handle it. Like the thought of nails on chalkboard, chalk just in general, like visceral response. Too many competing background noises, especially when I'm dysregulated. I'm just like, I can't handle this right now.
Yes, I feel like that one's becoming more, I'm more aware of that now.
Yes.
And I feel like as my kids are getting older and they're making more noises, my husband calls it air time or airspace, like you're taking up too much airtime or space, and our kids will just be like making lots of background noise but without really a purpose, like humming, whistling, doing something, but then another one's talking, and so he's like, you're taking up too much airspace. He's also a pilot, so I think this is like, that's just like how he maps it out to him, but it makes a lot of sense, and so it brings us all back down of like, okay, maybe there's only one plane in the air at a time, and we all feel a little dysregulated, which
okay, that's a great analogy. I love that. Okay.
Well, but that one is for me for sure. Yeah. The background noise and too many inputs.
Yep.
Yeah.
You just can't process them all.
Yeah. Do you think that's because we're getting older? Like, was that there before and I wasn't aware of it? Or just because of your amazing work, I'm more aware of these sort of things?
Probably both. Okay. Yes. But I truly think that, like, personally in motherhood, it almost puts you in this, like, protection mode. So when there is so much going on, our job is always to like protect our children, right? And so it's like when we have all this stuff that we have to filter out, whether it's tactile, auditory, whatever it is, we have to filter it out to know like, what do I need to do to keep my kids safe right now? Even though we're not thinking about keeping them safe, we're probably thinking about keeping ourselves safe in order to keep them safe. I think that's kind of what it stems from, is like, once you have offspring, your job is like protection. And like when all this extra stuff is getting in the way, it's hard, and you get, you know.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think like heightened sensory awareness, which is like primitive. Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. Okay, well, tell us about yourselves. You guys are both lactation consultants, but explain to me how you got to be where you are now.
Maureen and I laugh. We have really similar backgrounds, actually, like identical. Our resumes line up. We were both critical care adult nurses in a health system for a little over a decade. And then through our own motherhood journeys, felt this pull into maternal newborn health. So we both transferred to the mother-baby floor or postpartum floor in the health system. And then found that supporting feeding families was our favorite part of that job. So we both pursued our IBCLCs, which is International Board Certified Lactation Consultant. And we collaborated together through the health system for a little bit of time, and then decided to start Wild Milk Co., our private lactation practice together, which has been super fun.
Absolutely. And I think I was feeling a little burnt out after spending about a decade working in intensive care and just wanting to do something else, which is one of the beauties of nursing. You have so many options to do so many different things within the field. And so once I started having my own kids, that's when I was like really ready to do something else, right? And so being able to go from adult ICU to mother baby nursing, like it was such a huge change, but in such an amazing way. So I just feel like, it was the best move, and I love that I am where I am.
Yeah, I love that. Give us a brief explanation of IBCLC and when someone is looking for lactation consultant, or like if they're looking for support, what's the difference between an IBCLC and maybe just like a lactation consultant?
I love this question because there are a lot of different ways that you can become a quote-unquote lactation consultant, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're an international board certified lactation consultant. So for specifically Kristin and I and the pathway that we chose, so a lot of people don't know there's 3 different ways that you can become an IBCLC, and the most common pathway is pathway 1, where you already are a RN or have some kind of foundational medical training, and then you do an additional 90 hours specific to lactation education, and then you have to do 1,000 clinical hours. But those clinical hours don't necessarily need to be supervised. So I do feel like pathway 1 IBCLCs, which again are the most common, like their background and training can look really different depending on what their job is and how they got that, or how they reached the 1,000 clinical hours.
I see.
Yeah. So
if I wanted to become an IBCLC, I would have to do that route, or would I have to go back and get an additional degree?
Not an additional degree. Potentially you could do a pathway 3, which is the educational hours. The 90 hours is all the same, but it's mentorship under an IBCLC.
I see.
And because it's more direct mentorship, it's less time supporting breastfeeding.
I gotcha.
In addition to like the prerequisite health sciences that you would have to, health science classes that you would have to do.
Yes.
But you maybe would already have that.
Probably. Yeah. So someone who doesn't have all of that they would just be a lactation consultant.
Yeah, so there's
and you don't have to take a test at the end, right? Because with the IBCLC, to be board certified, you have to take an exam at the end, right?
There is, I think, an exam with a CBS, a certified breastfeeding specialist, maybe, and a CLC. So it's 45 hours instead of 90. So it's half of the educational programming, and the continuing education for renewal is less, and the clinical hours or time supporting breastfeeding families is less.
Gotcha.
So there is a degree of certification involved and education involved. It's just a lot less time.
So when a caregiver is looking for lactation support, they should ideally be looking for an IBCLC.
Absolutely.
I would say it's the gold standard.
Okay, that's my thought. That's kind of what I felt when I was going through it too.
Yeah. And we didn't talk about pathway 2, but that's the other pathway that you can actually get certified through a program. So you do your program, you get all your health science classes there through that specific university or program, and then you also do the mentorship through them, and you're a lactation consultant after that. So a lot of people ask, do you have to be an RN? No, you don't have to be an RN. A lot of the IBCLCs that are hired through health systems are foundationally RNs, but it's not a requirement. There's lots of different ways you can be an IBCLC. So again, I feel like that's the gold standard, but your specific training, even as an IBCLC, can be very different.
I see. Okay, let's pivot just a little bit and talk about feeding early on, in the hospital versus at home. What's common but not normal? I feel like I've been hearing a lot of new moms getting mastitis right after giving birth and starting breastfeeding. So talk a little bit about like what new families should be looking for and kind of like that pathway.
It's a lot to bite off.
I know. I should have just asked one question, but I can't. So I'm like, just tell me everything,
all the things.
So I think to start off with that question, like your birth definitely influences your feeding journey, and especially in those early days, right? If you've labored for 36 hours and then maybe you had an unplanned C-section, like your recovery is going to look vastly different than somebody that has a home birth, right? So challenges in the early days can be very, very different, and I think that that's a reason why Chris and I are so passionate about educating on the value and importance of prenatal lactation support, is because when you start that education and preparation prenatally, you're just that much more equipped to know what to do, you know, given the events of your birth and what is going on with feeding right from the start. Because those first like 3 to 5 days are really, really important for your long-term success with your breastfeeding journey. So
can I just pause and like reiterate what you just said in case it got missed, just because I think that's personally, I found that so helpful, and that's something that I recommend to anyone. I'm like, go see an IBCLC before you give birth. Learn about positioning, learn about the techniques, learn about how to properly do it. I was doing it all wrong for 6 months before I finally went in and took my son and saw an IBCLC, and I was like, I'm sorry, I had no idea what I was doing.
I think something that is really important to take away and in alignment with that is that after birth, our brains are in a very primal place. We are wired for protection, and the learning centers of our brain are not like firing on in the same way. True. And so if you have a prenatal lactation consult, you are getting, when your brain is in a state to receive that information and retain that information, and then you've already done it, and then we're just sort of like reminding, or it's like habit, because you've been practicing these things. Like, we really work on hand expression in prenatals because we're like, that is something we want you to do a lot of in the first 24 hours. So practice the skill before, so that you already know what you're doing as you're recovering, as you're in this primal state brain, as you're like exhausted because you've had a long labor. So there's so much setting yourself up for success with a prenatal consult.
Yes. I love that.
Can't tell you, working in the hospital, like how many times I would walk into a room to educate a family, and they're exhausted. Like, they're trying to, they're barely keeping their eyes open through this information that is so important for them to have. And had they gotten it prenatally, you know, they would have been, then they're hearing it again and again, a second, a third time. So it's landing even better versus maybe they're getting 20% of the information that is being provided, you know, in the hospital setting.
I cannot relate. That's huge. That just makes so much sense. So first of all, education starting before giving birth. You know, I feel like another thing that's common is how painful it is. You know, at what point should it stop being painful, would you say?
So I will make sure to clarify on that point. Pain is not normal, right? So anytime there is pain with breastfeeding, especially if there's damage involved as well, we want that mom to get support immediately. Is there some soreness as you're learning for the first time how to breastfeed? Absolutely, but soreness is different than pain. So we don't want breastfeeding to be really painful. That's where we want to be looking at latch and positioning and optimizing things so that you're not, you know, toe curling every time you go to feed your baby, which is 8 to 10 times a day. Like, that can be torturous. So making sure that there's not a lot of pain, and that actually is one of the red flags, and we want to make sure that people understand that that would be a reason to reach out for support if they didn't already establish it prenatally.
So I think, to answer your question, what's common versus normal, like pain is not normal, but it's very common. And it's because the foundational support isn't set up, and then like the real-time support as you're moving through your feeding journey, particularly usually if you're in the health system, there's not the time to always align with feeds. And so like the best care is given within the nature of the constraints of the system, is what I would say.
And you had touched to and briefly asked about mastitis, or shared that you feel like that's been
I just feel like I've been hearing that. Like, I got it. And it wasn't like I wasn't like freshly postpartum, but I'm like, why is that happening?
Passive milk collectors.
I think we've become such a pump happy nation, and there's so many more women that are using Hakas and using all these collectors and uptaking their milk supply. And really, mastitis is an inflammatory condition. So if we are, you know, ramping up the milk supply and then maybe moving it not on a very regular basis, or there's hyperlactation going on, it just puts you at that much of a higher risk of having issues like plug ducts, mastitis, or what is now called ductal narrowing. So it's all inflammatory conditions in the breast, and it's definitely, I think, a big part of it.
So it's something that we're doing because we're like, we need more milk, products. We need all the things, all the products, instead of just feeding our babies. Like,
and I think there was like a viral TikTok that went out of like passive milk collectors, and now there's no like proper educational guidance of how much to move. And so we've seen several moms in this hyperlactation state where they're making enough milk for twins or triplets with one baby. Wow. And it's literally not from an actual electric breast pump. It is just from these passive milk collectors.
Wow.
So it's like the Haka. When we're saying that, we mean, and it's supposed to be passive, but actually you can create some suction.
Yeah.
And so then that actually becomes an active milk collector, more similar to an electric pump.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's when I got it, was when I was traveling and pumping and, you know.
Which, yes, and changing schedules and or pumping differently than your baby's drawing. Yeah. And they're a great tool that can be used with just the right education and guidance is what I would say there.
Yes.
And I think back to the value or point about prenatal lactation help or support is like there's so much on social media that may or may not be accurate information. And I can't tell you how many moms are expecting to have a freezer full of milk or a big stash that is established. And like that comes with risk. Like those moms that have huge freezers full of milk, they are working hard and they are actively removing more milk and kind of pushing themselves usually into hyperlactation, which has a whole gamut of other, you know, issues that can be involved with it. So having a, you know, reliable source to go back to ask like, hey, should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? Do I need a freezer full of milk? No, you actually don't, unless that's for some reason your individual goal.
I also think it speaks to the need for individualized care.
Absolutely.
Right? Of, you know, a little bit of collection. Are you returning to work? What are your breastfeeding goals? What does your feeding look like? What are the logistics? And then that is where you can tailor a care plan to the dyad first. Just standardize. I saw
everybody gets a Haka.
Everybody gets a Haka.
You get a Haka. Everybody gets a Haka.
So you're anti-Haka.
It needs to be used with caution, right? Or you want to make sure there's education surrounding it. But I mean, it's suctioned to very sensitive tissue for a good amount of time, and that can cause damage in and of itself. It can pull off a good portion of the feeding, and if your baby is struggling with feeding for any reason, like we don't want the easiest portion of the feed removed into the Haka. We want it put into your baby. So we don't want to see like weight loss issues or transfer issues because you're using you know, something to collect more milk than really needs to be collected.
Amazing.
But with the right amount of guidance, it is a pretty sweet tool, especially for the moms returning to work, to get a little bit of a head start on their collection pretty effortlessly, to not have to clean all the pump parts and things. So like, I would say we are pro it in the right circumstances, in the right time frame,
Makes
with
sense.
the right guidance.
Okay. Just all the stimulation. I love that though. So let's say you are working with a new family, a new dyad, I like that, and you are maybe explaining what some of the common things that you will see a baby struggle with, to know that maybe there's an issue, maybe there's something deeper that we need to look at. So what are those symptoms that you most often see?
This is one of my favorite things to educate about in a prenatal visit, right? Is like making sure that we're going through all of those reasons why you're going to want to immediately reach out to specifically me or whoever your lactation consultant is when your concerned baby's not getting enough, when there's not enough wet and poopy diapers, when your pediatrician is telling you that baby has lost too much weight, when your nipples are cracked and bleeding and in pain, you know, all of those reasons why we want you to have support immediately. Your consultant can be there.
And it's also not a new person you're meeting in this really vulnerable space. Like, you've established the relationship, the comfort level. You also have a direct line. Like, hi, I need you now. You're not trying to set up like filling out paperwork, intake forms, communication. It's just
Looking
like other
at websites.
logistical barriers to getting real-time help.
And I think another piece of finding the right consultant is also their personality, right? And that takes time to like look through people's websites, figure out who's going to jive with you, who you feel like is going to be really supportive of your feeding goals. So that's another piece.
What are your thoughts on colic?
It's a symptom. It's not a diagnosis, right?
Agreed. Yes.
Yeah. And there's so many different reasons why babies can be quote unquote colicky. And I think in going back to common versus normal, right, is like it has become this thing that it's normalized that babies can be colicky or inconsolable. And really, we want to get to the root cause of what's causing that. There's so many different things that we could try to tease out to figure out what's going on with your baby and why are they so uncomfortable in their own skin, right? So making
they should be, right? They should not be that uncomfortable in their own skin, and it just breaks my little heart.
Yeah,
definitely.
Like, is it reflux? Could it be food intolerance? Could it be oral restriction? Like, there's so many. Yes. You know? Could it be sensory challenges? Yeah. And making sure we're getting that baby and that family to the appropriate resources so that they, you know, really do find the root cause of whatever's going on.
Yeah, I love that.
Yes, we love digging to the bottom of that. I think sometimes when families go to their provider's office and they're like, the baby cries a lot, and they're like, okay, well, it's just something to work through and it's going to be fine. And it's like, we go into the family's home and we're with them for an hour and a half, and we're like, it's not fine. These parents are not fine. Talk about nervous system regulation.
Exactly.
Like, we have to get to the bottom of this for the baby's comfort, absolutely. And then also for the family's comfort. And like, they're moving into their parenthood journey needs to look differently. And it's our job to get to the bottom of that so that they can. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Do you guys like pediatric chiropractors? Do you often refer to like pediatric chiropractors?
Yeah.
I find that's a really helpful resource as well.
Absolutely. But in going back to like training, not all of them I think are created equal, right? So I think that's another reason why, you know, making sure that you are working with an IBCLC that knows the community and knows the resources, like they're going to point you in the direction of a pediatric chiropractor that specifically worked with babies and breastfeeding and they've seen results.
Yeah.
So
even
we love
even craniosacral. I feel like that's really beneficial. I don't know if you guys do cranio at all. I know some therapists do, but I feel like that's such a helpful resource as well.
It is. We're diving in. We're not advertising that we do it yet because Maureen and I's, maybe it's the ICU nurse in us, we're like perfection before we like try something. So we've started training. We have some initial stages done.
Amazing.
So more to come by the end of the fall. But
part of my motivation and even in our motivation in taking the craniosacral therapy class was just to better understand why it's beneficial for babies. Like,
how does this work? What is the voodoo magic?
That is voodoo. Just like
but we love some good woo woo, like some woo woo with results. Like, we are all about it. Yes,
woo with results.
It wasn't until I moved to Boise from Southern California that I had even been introduced or heard of craniosacral therapy, which was just a couple years ago, right? So I'm like, I've been a nurse for how long? Like, what is this craniosacral what? And so then I'm seeing all these results in babies that are having feeding challenges, and I'm like, I need more. So like going to shadow local providers and then diving into the course, like it can be really beneficial for feeding journeys and for babies that are struggling.
Well, and that's the mark of a good therapist, right? Someone who's always trying to learn, how can I better support my clients, right? You could easily just be like, I'll refer you out to someone, you know, no, we're not going to do that. But it's like, I want to learn. I want to know more. Like, let me learn as much as I can to better support my clients.
Maureen and I have a part-time job of shadowing other modalities. We're like chiro, cranial, osteopathy. Like, we literally just spend hours shadowing these people, because also we're like, okay, if we're referring to, we need to like deeply understand how this works, why this works, what's the family's experience when they come into the environment. And so, which has also then sparked more interest for us to dive deeper into bodywork.
You guys are the absolute best. Like, can we just replicate
it's a problem.
And the fact that we are so similar in it, like we always say, I'm a little bit more of the brake. She is full gas, and I am a little bit of the brake, but I also have a little too much gas to like for this partnership.
Well, I think also we've had to kind of reel ourselves back in, because do we want to expand our training and skills? Yes, but we're not trying to be jack of all trades, right? We really want to be masters at lactation, and pulling in some of that other education and pieces of it is really important, but also making sure we're like
honing our craft.
Yes, let's make sure that we're coming back to lactation and exactly how, you know, this extra time spent learning is supporting the diets that we see.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. You ready for this?
The elephant in the room.
Yes. Oral ties. What are they? Why do we need to pay attention to them? What's your mojo? Like, I just feel like there's a lot of controversy. There always has been. So give us your take on the oral tie thing.
Yeah. So I will say a lot of the reason behind why there is controversy, or why you may hear differing opinions, is because anybody that is supporting infant feeding, their foundational training scratches the surface when it comes to oral ties, right? So even as lactation consultants or IBCLCs, our foundational training barely prepared us for identifying and knowing exactly what to do when it comes to infants having oral ties. So unless that individual provider or practitioner is deep diving into that space, they may or may not have a lot of knowledge about it, right? And pediatricians have to know so much. Like, they are supporting from 0 to 18 and any problem that comes up in the meantime. So to expect even like a pediatrician to have a lot of specialized knowledge specific to oral ties is hard. So Kristin and I we talk about this and relate on it. Like, when we first started and we were seeing patients in the outpatient space, like we were nervous because we didn't even feel really prepared to be identifying oral ties. And so specifically for me, like, that has been such a driver of me deepening my skill set and figuring it all out. And for a while, I feel like I would be supporting these families and I would see plateauing in their feeding journey, right? Like, they're doing the CST, they're doing the latch and positioning has been corrected, like they're doing all the work, or they're triple feeding, and then we're just plateauing, and I'm not getting to that next step where they're able to really reach their goals. And so I've taken the courses, I've done all the things, and it was such an eye-opener of like, oh my goodness, like, this does really impact infant feeding and specifically breastfeeding, and it's something that we need to deepen our knowledge base on. So
I love that.
It's a bummer that the foundational training doesn't better prepare people for
sure
to be on the same page about
it. It's just like me and primitive reflexes. Like, my foundational training included very minimal information about it, and it's something you have to go and learn more about if you want to specialize in that, right? And so I think at least the common misconception that I hear is that it's like, do you release or do you not? And I think what's cool about doing the prenatal visits is that way you can explain to families what to look for, symptoms of what to prepare for. I'll have you share that in just a minute. And you can identify, like, do we need to intervene or do we not? Can we watch it and see if things improve? Can we do the body work? Can we do everything we need to do, but like to maybe prevent having to do a release if it's not necessary? And so I think that's something that I just want to make sure families know about. And I just think that's huge.
Yeah, and I think another piece to it is the way that we practice, we pride ourselves on that it is holistic, so it's very comprehensive too, but it's also conservative. Like, this is a big deal, and we're not just going to jump with a recommendation of release. We're going to be really thorough in teasing everything out to make sure that there isn't another contributing factor that can be addressed, like the bodywork piece, like oral exercises. And so we like to start with those things, and if a release is still needed, then those are incredible preparatory steps that you would need to do anyways. But sometimes you see function improvement, and it isn't a need for a release. And so just being thoughtful, methodical, and conservative in the process and approaching it, and then also finding out what are the family's goals, because sometimes it can seem like, maybe this is the next logical step, but the family doesn't have peace with that logical step. And so then we're like, okay, tell us your goal, and we're going to support what that path looks like.
I love that. Okay, symptoms. What should families be looking for if there's a potential tie, whether it's tongue tie, lip tie, buccal ties?
We hear the argument quite often that if a baby is gaining weight and there's no nipple pain, everything is okay. But we see a whole gamut of different symptoms that can tie back, no pun intended, to the mouth, right? So it can mean popping on and off. It can mean that baby is leaking at the breast or at the bottle. Reflux, it can mean that there's aerophagia or a lot of air intake during the feeding, which, can cause, like, quote unquote, colic-like symptoms. Nipple pain absolutely is definitely a red flag for there being some kind of challenge with the oral anatomy. What else am I missing?
What about outside of feeding? Think about tummy time. Are they tight with tummy time? Mouth breathing?
Absolutely. Lip blistering.
Lip blisters.
Well, I'm talking about a holistic approach. Like, we're looking at baby from head to toe, and that's something that we always make sure that we're getting back to, is everybody's hyper focused on the mouth, right? And there's so many families that are now like, does my baby have a tie? Does my baby have a tie? I'm like, let's zoom out. What does your baby's body look like? What are they experiencing? Yes. But then we also know that when we're seeing babies with that banana shape or C curve or asymmetry, that in the back of our minds as we're working through our full body assessment is, could there be restrictive oral tissue that is, you know, a contributing factor to this?
Because I think too, what most people don't realize, that tongue fascia connects to the tip of your toes. So if that's going to be tight, which is also why I'm like so excited for mine, because I'm like, maybe it'll release all of my tension, you know, I don't know, maybe it will. But I think that's something to keep in mind too, and like explain that, like when a baby is doing significant tummy time 2 days after being born, like that's not normal. You know, that's tension.
You hear it all the time, like, oh, look at my baby is so strong.
That was me. I had no idea. I was like, oh, it's rolling over in 4 days. Oh my gosh. You know?
Totally.
Like, if only I knew, right? No one told me. I didn't know that was a thing. Until you start diving into it and realize, oh my gosh, your poor little tongue is stuck. You know?
So in talking about symptoms, the first thing, like, so we'll provide families with a symptom checker if we're concerned that there's any restrictive tissue, but the first symptom for mom is gut feeling that feeding's not going well. And so I think that's something that parents really need to tune into. Like, if feeding just feels so hard and it feels daunting and it feels dreadful, or it just doesn't feel like it's going smoothly, please, like, reach out to an IBCLC, because there's so many different things that we could do to support so that you're reaching your goals, you're bonding with your baby, and that things are feeling like they're happening with ease.
I love that. So when we talk about oral ties, we have tongue ties, we have lip ties, we have buccal ties. Can you just briefly explain for anyone who isn't sure, like, what those are, what structural terms we want to give those? I think that'd be helpful.
So there's so many different terms that you'll hear used: frenum, frenum, frenulum. The hair connective tissue that attach one area of the mouth to another area. And actually we have them in multiple sites in our body. It's not just concentrated to the mouth, but there are 7 different frenums in the mouth that could potentially be restrictive. So you have the upper lip, the lower lip, the upper cheeks or buccals, the lower cheeks, lower buccals, and then the tongue. So there are potentially 7 different areas that could be restrictive or could cause functional issues. The most common that are released or that we talk about are going to be the upper lip and the tongue. I feel like the buccals now are starting to become more and more looked at and talked about. But if any of those frenums are short or tight or restrictive, they can cause symptoms. And so I think that's something else that's important for families to understand, is it's not just looking at the anatomy, right? The anatomy can be there, and we want it to be there, but unless it's causing a functional issue, or it's, you know, there are symptoms that are present, current symptoms in your baby, right, then that may not need to be released or addressed.
Absolutely. And I think that's, again, just going back to like the education, that's what's so helpful. With my daughter, I knew what to look for. I went in, we learned about it, and we watched it. You know, it's like, this is what she's struggling with, but we're going to do all the things to see if we can maybe avoid it. And we ended up deciding at 5 weeks, we've tried all the things. And it was amazing the day that she got her release done. She could like extend her neck during tummy time. And I was like, you poor thing, you were so tight.
It can be so transformative for some babies.
So I just think it's magical to be able to not immediately go to a release and like looking at the whole body, looking at it holistically. Do we need to address it? The family's goals, like taking all of that into consideration is huge.
I think the biggest thing is it's a big decision, and so when you wait and you give that process so that you notice those pieces, the family has total peace with the decision. Because to me, feeling like that goes back into that like whole family regulation. I couldn't do it.
Okay. For me,
that you and your partner have peace, that this was really needed, and then you're seeing the benefits, the difference.
Totally.
Rather than having lingering doubt, was this really needed? Did we jump the gun?
And it's our job to prepare families and to make sure they understand that going through a release is a process. So many families think like, I have a breastfeeding issue, my baby needs a release, it's going to be the silver bullet and everything's going to be great on the other side. And that is not what brings good functional outcomes. Like, there needs to be a team approach. There needs to be, preparation beforehand. There needs to be continued exercises after the release so that you are fully supporting baby and the dyad and the body to do what we need it to do to reach a really good functional outcome.
Totally. That function. And that's like in OT world.
Yes.
That's what we look at. It has to be functional.
Yeah.
So, my area of passion is sensory primitive reflexes, nervous system. How does that play into your consults and what you're even teaching your clients who are maybe coming from a dysregulated standpoint, or maybe their baby is struggling with colic and the whole household is only as regulated as the least regulated person, which is that sweet little baby?
We loved learning from you at the summit. When you presented, it was so good, and I feel like all of us were mind blown and like hanging on every word.
I'm so glad.
And we have integrated a lot of the little pearls that you taught us into our practice.
Good.
So co-regulation is a big thing that we like to educate families on. And so mom being in a relaxed, regulated state for the start of the feed, and then baby will feed off of mom's energy, but also if the baby is dysregulated, what kind of things can you do? So something that we integrate into all of our consults is rhythmic movements for babies. And it's just a really healthy daily practice. So not necessarily like baby's colicking, we need to move into these rhythmic movements, like just where this is like a preventative, proactive thing.
Yes, I love that.
Baby wearing, we're big fans of baby wearing. It's regulating, it's practical, it's comfortable.
And I will say one of the ways that I learned about rhythmic movements was from Jennifer Tao, who is an IBCLC and like pioneer in the lactation field. And she has a course, and tying back to the idea of like not every IBCLC is created equally, she has an IBCLC masterclass, and it's like 30 plus hours of education where she runs through like how to really prepare a baby for a release, how to incorporate rhythmic movements, how to make sure that you are supporting the whole dyad throughout that process from start to finish. So she was, I think, the first person that introduced rhythmic movements and how you can use them on babies for me. And families love it.
Yeah, I think that's it's such an important tool to have in your back pocket, and you can just like whip it out. Like even when I was in the clinic setting with older kiddos, it's like this child's dysregulated, let's see if we can do some rhythmic movements, get them balanced again. And way back when I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing, but I learned about this, so I'm gonna try it. But now I'm like, we're really targeting the brainstem, and it's just foundational rhythm, and we need rhythm, and our babies thrive with rhythm,
which is so cool.
And I love when I go to a home visit and it's like the 2-year-old is also on the floor doing rhythmic movements. I'm like, see, this is a whole family affair. Like everybody just get on the floor and let's do rhythmic movements.
Oh yes, I love that, and I think that's so helpful. I feel like we get a lot of comments and questions from new parents or first-time parents who are like, how do I do this, or what do I do? And I feel like you need to have someone teach you. I've found a few good YouTube videos, but I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm like, you need to find someone who can like physically show you what to do, how to do it, because it is such a, I don't want to say finicky, but I just feel like there's a lot of ways that you can do them wrong. And I think it's important to make sure that families are doing them right.
And we also aim to individualize the rhythmic movements that we're giving families, because we don't want to roll through like 10 different things they have to do with their baby every day. It's like, what 3 or 4 targeted rhythmic movements can we give you based on like what we are seeing going on in your baby's body?
I love that. One thing that I love is teaching, well, personally, with my own kiddos, and teaching other families to do like little baby sensory diets. And I think a lot of people get overwhelmed by the thought of like having to do all of these sensory things with their kids throughout the day, or their babies throughout the day. And I'm like, you get into a routine with their little wake windows, and you spend a few minutes doing sensory-based activities kind of in an organized way. And there's so many little sensory things that you can do with these babies to support them. Whether it's infant massage, whether it's a little baby blanket swing, whether it is those rhythmic movements, whether it is, mouth exercises, getting into baby's mouth so that way they're not uncomfortable by foreign things in their mouths, and they're just desensitizing. So I just think that babies can really benefit from little baby sensory, maybe they're not sensory diets, but that's in my head what I'm thinking of.
Well, and I think families do this naturally without necessarily calling it a sensory diet or knowing that they're really supporting their babies in that specific sense. Is like, how many families do we see that bounce on a yoga ball because it's very regulating for their babies, or how many families are wearing baby because baby gets dysregulated, and that's just their way of naturally responding and calming. So I think it is good though for them to tune in to their baby and their experience experience and what they are responding to, either positively or negatively, and then building routine around that so that you are definitely supporting their from a sensory standpoint.
And what's so helpful for families to recognize is there's 8 senses. And so I always like to say, let's do one novel sensory experience, every wake window, whether it's like a new feathers on them, or a new visual to track, or music that they can listen to, like something novel to enrich their little brains and like give, I don't want to say bombard, but I do want to say bombard, if that makes sense. Like give their system as much novelty to have to process, because those first years are the most important in a lot of ways. And there's just so many different ways that we can fill their little sensory cups.
I love that too, because it's being intentional with like kind of a goal, right? Like the sensory piece is the goal, but it's also a way to connect with your baby.
Yes.
Because I think we spend so much time thinking about like the next task at hand, and just slowing down in the moment and connecting with them, making eye contact in whatever sensory input that you're giving them, I think is really amazing.
Well, and going along with that, I feel like nowadays it's what product am I going to get my baby to replace me? What bouncer, what swing, what mobile, what Love Every box. I love Every, but also I'm like, you are all they need. And it's like, I don't want people, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about this. I don't want moms to think that like any product can
replace them,
right? Like, at the end of the day,
it's going to fall short to what you have to offer. Absolutely.
And that connection and that one-on-one. I remember doing this with both my kiddos, and I'm like, it's just the time, the intentional time. Set my timer. We're going to do this for 5 minutes, and they're therapeutic exercises. Sorry, but
it's all mindset, right? It's a way for you to engage and bond with your baby.
We're here together and connecting, and I'm glad that you mentioned that.
It's not a chore; it's connecting. And love it.
So fun. Another common theme that I hear on social media a lot is swaddling. To swaddle or to not swaddle. So I would encourage you to share your thoughts on that, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So we love to educate parents about the importance of mobilizing their babies, right? Like mobility for babies right out of the gate is so important. So if we are constantly swaddling or dampening that ability for babies to express reflexes, we are not necessarily supporting their growth and development long term. So we love to teach families not to swaddle, or if their choice is going to be to swaddle, to make sure we're providing everything in moderation, and do it at night if you need to, but then make sure that you are mobilizing as best as you possibly can throughout the day, so that your baby is getting a chance to express those reflexes, move their body, work out tension. It's so vital. Another reason why we love baby wearing. I could talk about baby wearing all day, but instead of putting your baby in a swing, instead of having your baby in the car seat, like put them on your body, let them experience your movement, let them experience like what is going on in the world around them, where they are not just in flexion, closed off, and not able to be moving.
I can't tell you how many times I see babies in car seats going through the grocery store, and I'm like, don't say anything, don't say anything, don't say anything. And I'm like, I'll say it to you now. This is a great opportunity to allow your baby to explore the world. I feel like these are the babies who, they're stuck in car seats, they have one view, they're in flexion, they're can't move. These are the ones who are requiring technology when they're in the grocery store, when they're older. It's like they're the ones who need that stimulation. When let's expose them to all of this natural sensory input.
It's so hard because our societal norms don't support biologic norms.
I could not agree with you more.
So and it's families need education, right? Maybe they just don't know. So we make sure that we're talking to them about that, starting those conversations, and then they're educated and they make the choice that's best for their family, but making sure that
they have that information
is so important.
And I always like to say, anytime a baby is in a container, whether it's a car seat, a stroller, a bouncer, a jumper, whatever it is, they need to have that at least that same amount of time on the floor.
To counterbalance that time spent in containment.
You're going to drive half an hour to pick up Big Brother from school. Okay, 30 minutes before you leave, make sure that you take baby out so they can move and they can
stretch
be
their
on
body.
the floor.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's so funny. With my third baby, I had a little bit of anxiety because of how much time we had to spend in the car with my other two kiddos for preschool and like little activities. And I would be like, oh my gosh, she spent so much time in her car seat today, and have such anxiety about it. But I baby wore her like the rest of time, and or had her on the ground. So that counterbalancing,
it totally does.
It made me feel like, okay, I can do this though. Like, cause there is a real life piece to this of like, we are spending time in the car, and
it has to fit the family.
Yes,
but I'm like, you can do whatever you want, it's totally fine, but I just have to tell you, like, this is my recommendation. You do not have to take it, but you could if you want to.
Absolutely. And it's fine. Yeah, it's better.
And we ask families in like our intake what they're planning on using for sleeping, or what kind of bassinet, because you best believe if they have a SNU, I'm going to provide education and how that can be detrimental to their baby's growth and development.
Thank you so much for doing the good work.
Swaddles also have their time and place, right? For those babies that are like overstimulated or hyper responsive, sometimes they can be very regulating. So I think if they're used as a tool, time, place, moderation, they can be beneficial as well.
And again, it's just one of those products out there that you're just conditioned to think that you need, you know. And I used to think that babies are, you know, in utero, they have that, they can feel their boundaries. So swaddling can be beneficial to help them like transition out of that. But I'm like, but what about all the rest of the time? Like, they need that that time to explore gravity and this new world that they're in. You know, they can't always be tucked up tight and not moving. And, you know, when you mentioned expressing their reflexes, we want babies to startle. Yes. And then we want to regulate them, and we want them to connect, because that's how it integrates. And so if we're just cutting off all of these natural reflexive patterns and ability to do that, then it's going to be hard for them to catch up. So because we're in the conversation of like swaddles and products and this and that, let's rapid fire your go-to recommendations for some of these like common products. Okay. Are you good with that?
Yeah.
Good.
Yes. Okay. So the first one on my list, pumps, electric pumps.
Okay.
Or hand pumps, either one.
Brands, you're saying?
Yeah. Like, what do you like? What's your usual go-to recommendation?
The Spectra. It's kind of the tried and true.
Blue or pink?
I mean, blue's convenient.
Yeah, blue if you can spring for it.
Yeah, but sometimes you have to pay an additional rate with your insurance. I guess we should say that insurances are legally required to cover a breast pump.
Yes.
Most per pregnancy. Medicaid is every 3 years. Are there any others that have like nuancy things like that?
I don't know about other states, but no, I think that's a good general recommendation.
So unless it's Medicaid, if you have a baby a year, you can still get a new pump. I think people don't realize that. The Eufy.
It's great to prepare yourself and get one, but also like, don't be married to the idea that you need to start pumping immediately, right? So prepare, but you don't necessarily need to start using a pump right away.
Love that. Hand pumps.
Yeah, can be a good tool.
Like a
manual pumps.
Yeah.
So some moms, I do think it's more rare, but there have been some moms that do not respond. Like, they don't have the the mind-body connection piece isn't there for them with an electric pump. And so they'll be pumping, they're not getting any volumes, and all of a sudden we trial a hand pump and they're just dumping in. It's like their control releases, and they're able to have like a better letdown. So
I personally really liked the hand pump.
Did you? Okay, interesting. With like sensory input stuff, like what do you think is...
I don't know. I just felt like I could, kind of like what you said, it's that interoception piece. Like, I could get myself to have a letdown. I could feel it, and then I could like lean into it. And it was much more like, it wasn't as like robotic. It was more like I could control it and I could stimulate it.
Well, if we have moms too that tell us that they're neurodivergent, or that we think they are neurodivergent, that's going to help us to figure out what kind of pump to recommend based on the cycle and the experience that we think that they would get with a particular pump.
I love that.
And then wearable pumps are like, we get questions about wearable pumps nonstop. And I will say that they are better now than they have been previously. So in the lactation field, we used to always say primary pump, one that plugs into the wall, and then you can get a secondary, quote unquote, secondary pump. But some of the pump companies, like Eufy, is making a pretty darn good wearable pump. And I've had multiple clients recently that are expressing the same, if not more, with their wearable pump than they are their like standard or primary pump. So I think it really it's individual, right?
Okay.
Like your individual response to your pump is what's most important,
Definitely.
not one specific brand or product.
Yeah.
I will say, from a personal standpoint, when I did use the Spectra, I used the C cups. Are you familiar with those? And I loved those because it was on the Spectra, which was helpful.
Yeah.
And it was like the wearable, but you were still connected.
Hands-free.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a good middle ground.
Yeah, it worked for me.
Definitely.
Okay, next one. Formulas? Do you guys have any that you love that you maybe recommend? Do you ever recommend?
Good question.
Formulas?
I mean, formula
families?
definitely has its time and its place, especially if we're supporting like a combo feeding family. We meet you where you are. So if formula is going to be part of your journey, obviously it's always your decision, but there are some cleaner formulas that are on the market. There's a lot of families that like to use European-based formulas because their standards are different than here in the U.S. So Hip and Holly are some European brands. Kendamil's another one. And then here in the US based market, Bobby is one that a lot of families like to use, and then Nara is a new one that just came out. I have not done research, but that's a newer one that families have been trialing and liking.
Cool. Love that.
But donor milk's great too.
Donor milk is great. Yes.
Yeah, if you have access to donor milk, that's going to be definitely preferable.
I did that. My friend had a baby, and she needed milk for some reason because she wasn't pumping and she was struggling, and I was like, I've got a whole bunch of milk, so I just
amazing.
What a gift!
What a gift!
I feel like I don't know if people forget about that, but I just feel like asking. There's always someone who you can throw something out
Trusted
online.
friend.
And, yeah, I love that. Okay, next one. Pillow supports for breastfeeding. Do you have any favorites? Do you love these?
Don't love these.
Okay, I didn't ever use them, so I feel like people are like, oh, I need my boppy, or whatever.
Back to the where we meet families where they are. So if we're noticing that somebody is really needing and comfortable with it, like we want to start with where you're comfortable and what we know is working. But at a baseline, we want breastfeeding to be repeatable wherever you are. So if you're having brunch with friends, we want you to be able to feed your baby. Are you lugging your boppy and like all these other things with you, or can you like latch baby and koala, or in your carrier can you be baby wearing and breastfeeding? So that if we were to get to design the journey, that's where we would start it. But some families have like really good outcomes with using more supports and then in time kind of like stretching their wings and stripping things away.
I love that.
We do our best to utilize your body with your baby.
Totally. As we should.
Like biologic breastfeeding is.
But I will say my breast friend over Boppy. I just really don't like. If I had to choose one.
Oh, okay. That's good to know.
There's like better support. Baby's body can be in better positioning and
it's more firm. It connects around you.
Good deal. Okay. I haven't used either, so I was like, I'm curious what your opinions are.
There's a lot of other pillows too that are on the market, but you can get in the weeds.
Okay, next one. Scales at home. Yay or nay? Okay. I feel like it's just automatically anxiety inducing for a lot of families.
And we've actually collaborated with some perinatal mental health providers who have said if a mom has a risk factor to have some OCD, give that mom a scale and she is going to go like off the deep end with that fixation and obsession over the weights. So, but even at a baseline, it's anxiety inducing. And it's something else to focus on. And instead, what we want families to focus on is the wet and poopy diapers. Does your breast feel lighter after the feed? Did you hear the baby swallow?
Is your baby
finish my sentences? I love it. All those things. So instead of fixating on the numbers and the scale,
read their cues.
Read your baby, read your body.
And then continue to work with your IBCLC, right? Because they're going to be watching all those things. And I will say there's like a very rare occurrence where we would use a scale. But
because if you guys are going into homes, you're not weighing babies before and after feeds, are you?
And we have scales.
Oh my gosh, what don't you have?
So we have to sit. They're really, I will say like not every scale is created equal. And we have highly invested in these scales. They're accurate down to 2 grams, which is like 2 little milliliters, like negligible amount. So we do weigh the baby before and after the feed, and we can tell what transfer is. And we also like to say this is also a snapshot in their day. So baby feeds a lot of times, and not every feed is going to be, if they transfer 2 ounces, it doesn't mean every feed's going to look that way, but it is like another piece of data to help shape the plan.
I love that.
And if a family's really wanting to use it, then I provide the education of like, don't use it for a weighted feeding. Like, do a daily weight or do a weekly weight. Like, use it in a way that you can really interpret the data and not just get tied up in an inaccurate weighted feed.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, you guys. Okay, bottles. Glass or plastic? Does it matter in the end of the day?
I love recommending glass. I mean, whatever we can do to eliminate any kind of plastic exposure. And I know that now plastics are BPA free for the most part with baby bottles and things like that. But you also have to worry about lead, like lead in glass bottles and all these other things that can happen. So I think it's important to do your research. But what's more important than the bottle type is the shape of the nipple. So you want to make sure
that was my next question. Nipple types. I remember with my son, it was like, you need a Como-Toma. And now I'm like,
and now if I see that, I'm like, throw it in the trash.
I know.
So you want a bottle that passes, and a lot of people are familiar with this because it's all over TikTok or Instagram, but the triangle test. So if you put your pointer fingers on the top of the bottle, you want the bottle to fill as much of that triangular shape as possible, because that's going to ensure that that bottle has a gradual slope to it, and your baby's not going to straw latch onto a very narrow nipple. It's going to encourage them to have to open up and get on deeply, which is more supportive of what we want them to be doing at the breast.
I'm thinking of like the even flow bottles.
Even flow,
like that's
even
good
flow
balance. Yes.
The Pigeon is another one on the market.
Lancino, Gula Cola.
Nook Perfect Match.
There's lots of them.
Yeah, there are quite a few.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Okay, pacifiers. Yay or nay? First question, yay or nay, pacifiers.
How do you answer that in the middle? It's a helpful tool. Like, back to it's a tool. In general, nay.
Okay.
Yes, if I had to choose, I would say nay.
Okay. What about the ninny?
Yes.
Yay.
Use the ninny.
So the ninny can be used, again, as a tool. I feel like
that's what I find.
Especially if a baby has compromised oral function, it's going to be really hard for that family to use the ninny as an actual pacifier that is going to pacify them. So we teach use of the ninny like a tool. And if baby is able to keep it in their mouth, great. But then it's with that education of where do we want the tongue to be? We want it to be suctioned to the roof of the mouth. We want to make sure we're getting good palatal seal. If you are constantly putting a pacifier that's pushing the tongue down, then we're not supporting, really good oral health.
Exactly. So, okay. Any other products that you can think of, or do you go into homes and see things that you're like? We talked about the snoo, right? That's a nay.
Yep.
I would say there's great like teethers or different tools to support oral motor development. So once baby is 3-4 months old, they're bringing hands to midline, they're bringing their hands towards their mouth, and I like certain teethers that have
like the T shape or like P shape, like a long,
like the long teethers
with a long,
love
or
those
like the Eno Baby. Eno Baby has some really good teethers that support oral motor skills. So utilizing teethers and just making sure you're supporting all that oral function.
Yes.
And then we also, it's not specifically a product, but one of the things that we like to talk to parents about is nutrition. Like, nutrition is huge, right? And so when we're doing prenatal visits, if we get to moms early enough, we love recommending the book Real Food for Pregnancy by Lily Nichols. She is amazing when it comes to the nutritional space for all things, like even preconception. So she's written multiple books that I feel like set a really great foundation for good nutritional habits as you're moving into your postpartum period.
Okay, this has been so fun.
Yes, so fun.
I could honestly spend all day talking to you ladies, which we're in the right field when we can do that. But I want to invite you to share maybe one last piece of advice with maybe a mom listening or a therapist listening. What would be your, I don't want to say end all be all advice, but like your last takeaway, something that you want to make sure is heard?
I think trusting your intuition and just setting an intention for what your parenting journey is going to look like, not just your feeding journey, but parenting, and then putting the time and effort into setting yourself up for success and whatever that looks like with prenatal consultation, with educational classes, childbirth prep, whatever it looks like. But I think at the end of the day, confidence can inform so much of your success in what you're doing. And so trusting your intuition, building in the educational needs that you desire so that you feel confident is huge.
Love that.
Yeah.
And building your village. Build your village. We need each other. Postpartum mamas need support.
Yes.
So
meal trains are great. Just like dropping treasures off, you know. Like
people are having baby showers now where they're having like soup parties or food parties.
Such a good idea.
Yeah. Or like bring a freezer meal that you can pop into the freezer.
Like instead of diapers, like you can buy diapers, but like how long does it take to make a soup or a dish? Like
totally.
Yeah.
And so much with birth and postpartum is out of our control, right? But we can control our response to whatever is going on. So I love to remind moms to just really pay attention to your nervous system, make sure you pay attention to how you're responding to all things that are going on, because you can absolutely control that.
I love that so much. You guys are wonderful.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for the invitation.
Super fun.
Yes, it's just magical, and we can be in person and like connect. Like I just crave the connection so much, and just like-minded practitioners. It's so fun. So
Absolutely.
we appreciate you.
We appreciate you. Thank you for the work you do.
Thanks, of course. Thank you so much for listening to All Things Sensory by Harkla.
You can find links and resources from today's conversation right in the description of this episode.
If you want to connect, ask a question, or share what resonated with you, come find us on Instagram at All Things Sensory Podcast. We'd love to hear from you.
As a podcast listener, you get 10% off your first order at Harkla. Just use the code SENSORY at checkout or head to harkla.co/sensory to get started.
We're so grateful you're here and honored to be a part of your journey.
Everything we share here is for educational purposes only and reflects our professional experience. It isn't medical advice. Please consult your healthcare provider for support specific to your child.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.